to Ready to be Romanced. I'm Torry.
And I'm Megan.
And today we're discussing
A Court of Frost and Starlight.
Starlight.
You are incapable of saying a title without a giggle. I love it. It's your signature thing now.
It truly is. Surprise, we're back. Because, okay, so like this is what happened is I was so down on Akawar that I was going on vacation and I was like, I feel like I could read like one or two books on this trip. And I was like, I'm gonna read Akafas. And it took me literally one plane ride and a ferry. So like 4 hours, which I could have probably read it faster. Absolutely brutal book.
Brutal Flames is the like unhinged FaceTime call that I got from you being like,
oh my God, I forgot.
Like, we need to talk about these books right now. And I'm like, we shouldn't save it for the podcast. No, I'm ready. Let's talk about it.
I forgot about that.
What do you mean brutal? Okay, lay it on me.
The thing is this is really smart in terms of like, it is kind of a trilogy moving into a new aspect of this series because we know the POV switches from Feyre and Rhysand to other couples. So it makes so much sense to write a novella. I just thought in almost 300 pages we could get a little more intrigue. It's not fun just like watching people or like listening, experiencing people go shopping.
We did not talk about this. No, SJM gave us the Christmas sitcom episode of
it's so
the
true.
Avatar series, and I am living for it. Here's the perspective I will bring, which is that I reread this. I've only read it once. I now reread it over yesterday and today to record this episode. And with the first time I read it, I remember being like, question mark, huh? Like the gif of the woman with all the math going across her face being like, I don't understand. Like, what is this? Why is this? What is the point of this? So I hear you. And on the reread yesterday, today, when I had literally forgot everything that happened and reread it, I was giddy at having just like,
I know, fun stuff. It's so funny how hypocritical I am where it's like I was like Akawar, too much war, not enough sex, not enough funny bits, and then this is just sex and funny bits, and I was like, actually bring back the war. No, it wasn't even that though. I had a good time reading it. Again, read it in like 2 sittings over like a day on transportation. I had a great time. I was also like laughing and stuff like that. But and it plants a lot of good seeds. But I don't know. I just wanted more like events or something. I don't know.
I did like gloss over, I'm not going to lie, most of Feyre's internal little ramblings.
Insufferable. I stand Feyre. Actually, I don't know. I feel like I say that, but it's like if you looked back at all the episodes we've covered on this godforsaken series, I probably sound like Feyre. I call her a dumb bitch, I feel like every like 2 minutes. But like in general, I do like her as a character. Like I like her bravery and her courage, and she's like smart and stuff like that. But man, oh man, your life fucking sucks, girly. Like she just can't even spend $1 without complaining about something.
It's all these like big life lessons, and she is contemplating the meaning of life every 2 seconds, and I'm like, take a breath. You hit the jackpot. You won the lottery with a hot bat boy and like 18 houses at this point, okay? You own like 30 properties across multiple continents. You're fine. No, it's like, I'll take her spot if she wants to keep complaining.
No, literally. I'm just jealous. That's what this all stems from.
We're just jealous bitches.
Totally. Okay, so we're going to be talking about A Court of Frost and Starlight. So spoilers ahead. This book is written by Sarah J. Maas. It was published May 1st, 2018. And we pick up after the battle with Highburn has concluded, it's 1 week away from winter solstice / Feyre's birthday. And everyone's in Night Court kind of dealing with, you know, the ramifications after the war.
They're really like worried about what presents to get each other for ACOTAR Christmas.
No, literally. And again, love it because it's like, it is fun seeing. I wrote down all the gifts so we can talk about, who got what. Because I think that that's fun and it shows like more of their personality and how they think and stuff like that. Like, I think it's hilarious that Mor gets like really awful gifts and stuff like that. Like, that's funny. That's a cute little thing. But it's like, did we need that over 6 chapters or whatever? It's like, no, it could have been really truly 1. But
well, you can say the whole plot in the next 2 minutes of this, so I'll leave this.
Shop, grape. Like,
ooh, the Illyrian war camps might have an upsurgence, a resurgence. Bye.
Yeah, brew, plot. Yes. Okay, so Rhys is upset at Devlin because who's like one of the war generals in the Illyrian camps because he's not letting the females train. Cassian and Rhys have talked about the discrepancy between females and males in like the Illyrian
war camp
species or whatever. Because they're like supposed to be at home with the kids and setting everything up for winter solstice, so they were like not getting enough training hours, and obviously they're upset. They talk through this entire book, and I feel like even series, about how they're trying to make change in the Illyrian war camps, but it takes time.
Snore.
Yeah, the like, okay, literally recent our feminist king, like,
and it's just the most unnuanced,
basic bitch Barbie movie ass explanation of
women's
sexism
rights.
And women's rights. Literally.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So we check in with Nesta, and she's not speaking with Cassian right now. She's moved into an apartment in quote unquote slums and refuses to interact with anyone in the inner circle except for Amrim. And like, she does a little bit with Feyre and Elaine, but like very minimal. Feyre is excited but nervous to spend winter solstice in Night Court. It's her first one. The last one she was still in Spring Court. She is searching for gifts to give her friends. And while she's doing that, she meets Resna.
Couldn't beat me. Give me $1 for every time we mispronounce the name of someone in this series.
She meets Resna, ? At an art studio in the Rainbow District. And, you know, she's very thankful for Feyre. And she's like, I heard you were a painter. There's an empty gallery, like, across the street from my studio. And the family, like, deserted it. They escaped before the war. Come down here to paint. Or do something with this empty space. And she is just... She couldn't.
Possibly. I couldn't. I can't. I just that would just be
too much. Okay, Feyre.
Get a grip.
Get a fucking grip. It's like basically what happened in Spring Court all over again, where she can't paint. So that night, Mor, Rhys, and Feyre have to go to Hewn City. It's part of the tradition of solstice. We also hear at this time, because it's like a week, again, like I said, a week away from solstice. So they have like a week of festivities where they're always like going out to eat and having get-togethers. And it's tradition for them to go to Hewn City every solstice. And again, we, like, this is so annoying. We hear at this time where like Feyre and Rhys hold weekly like open sessions where citizens of Valaris can go tell them their gripes and grumbles and they'll like solve them and stuff like that. And it's so funny because she's also like volunteering at like, I think kind of like a shelter, and they're literally like, one of them like locks her out of the shelter, and they're like, fucking go home to your family and friends, we don't need you here anymore.
Which is really funny if you think about this whole underlying thing where Feyre's actually just like the most embarrassing person ever. And it's really funny because, of course, in the books, it's like, I just like am so guilty. I have to help all the people. I have to be going to every shelter. I like just couldn't possibly do anything for myself. Like, I just feel like that's not right after the war and everything seems so bad. And it's really funny. And then, yeah, then you read it as if they're supposed to be like, no, you've already done so much for us. Like, you should also go enjoy your time at this like holiday with your family. But it's really funny to read it as like she's so embarrassing and useless that everybody is literally like, no,
No,
we couldn't
leave.
no, leave it. You couldn't possibly help us anymore. And they're like, oh my God, get her out of here.
It does kind of seem like that. Like, she's just like imposing on the city a little bit, but it also gives like Princess Di vibes for sure. Like, yeah, it's just, it is funny. I'm actually curious from the listeners, so please weigh in, but it's like, did anybody read this and not think it was like cheesy? I'm curious if like people were just like, oh no, like that's my girl. Like,
that's who I want to be and aspire to be.
They go to Hewn City, and obviously tensions are always high there because Moore's father, and Eris is there because Eris and Keir have some type of working relationship. Eris wants to gain more territory from Autumn Court, and Feyre and Rhysand are like, absolutely not. Eris is like, okay, well, like, I guess if anybody wanted to expand their territories, they would have to, you know, go through Springcourt. So they would have to loop in Tamlin. And so Rhys and Feyre are like, oh, gotta check in on old Tam Tam.
Old Tam Tam. Let's go check on the guy. Well, and Rhysand is like, I'll go. Like, he asks Feyre, right, if she like wants to be a part of that conversation, because they need to know if Tamlin's gonna like protect the human border now that the wall is down, and what about expansion. And I think she's like, no, I'm good, which I like for her. Like,
That's fair.
I am glad that she's just like, that's none of my business, actually. I don't give a shit about, like, you
super
go
healthy.
You go do that. That's fine. No, actually it is. Actually, it really is. So, and then I like that he is like, yeah, of course, like, no problem. Like, I'll just go and do that. Like,
that's a good ally. That's what we want to see. Recent. Like,
yeah, exactly. I love that.
Before he goes to Springcourt, we see Feyre, you know, getting the courage to go to Rosina's studio to paint. But as soon as she gets there and looks inside the window, she's like, no, can't do it. So she ends up in the abandoned gallery and she paints there instead. And she paints how she looked in the Ouroboros mirror.
I can't even. I'm like looking at Torry like I cannot. You know what? Therapy. Good for you.
Art therapy, huge. Okay, is it just me? Because I, again, am here for the vibes and not really the lore. But like, when she sees herself as this like creature or whatever, what is really bad about that? Is it saying that she's like has this dark inside? Because it's like, yeah, but like, isn't that what Rhys likes and like Night Court is all about and stuff? Like, what
good fucking question. Good fucking question. It's like, yes, I'm a complex human being who has dark sides and light sides. That's what I saw in the mirror, and I accepted it.
Yeah, literally.
Basic Feyre, basic. It's fine.
So Rhys pays Tamlin a visit, and Springcourt is unwell. No one's there. They've abandoned him. No one's guarding the borders because people don't want to work for Tamlin. And he is living in like a abandoned estate.
It's just interesting, like, because I guess there was all this stuff going on in the war, and then he kind of had this redeeming moment in Akawar, or at least this like good moment where he helped, like pivotally helped them escape when Hybern kidnapped Elaine, and then also came through to help in the final war and battle, and then helped revive Rhysand from death. And then yeah, he's just kind of like he's in his depresso mode. I just don't think that he knows what to do now. And yeah, Feyre destroyed his court from the inside out before she left at the beginning of Aquar. So I just have questions. My wonder whys are like, isn't the spring like who is ruling over the entirety of the spring court though? Like there aren't villages of like people along. I know it's not like a big
I
city,
know.
but I'm just like, didn't probably a lot of people live on this estate and the servant and like just around? Like I'm just like, all right, I guess maybe it's just that everybody's abandoned the estate particularly, and maybe people have moved away since Hybern's forces were there. I don't know.
Yeah, and Reese offers to help him, but again, it's like, why would you want to? No offense, but like get help from such a smug, like a smug frenemy, basically.
Yeah, it's like who each both had a hand in killing each other's like families.
Family,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
So Tamlin's like, no, I wouldn't want like your people on my lands, and then he's like, hey, like, well, fuck you. You deserve all of this. Like, this is all your fault. Goodbye.
Yeah, it's so funny. Okay, so you know that, and I've talked a bit about it. I'm like a fan fiction girly. I love different ships of different characters and stuff. And I'm just thinking, like, there's just absolutely nothing, like, they're true enemies. And I love enemies to lovers, and I love me some slouch fan fiction. And there's just like, there's not even like good chemistry between them. Like, there's
No,
no,
it's
they literally
just bad.
yeah, they really just hate each other. And I'm like, okay, like, I get it. Yeah, it's just funny.
Totally, totally. Do you feel bad for Tamlin at this point?
No.
I don't either, but I do kind of see maybe a possible redemption arc coming from him
I've read a
in
bunch.
the long haul.
Yeah, I've read a bunch about this online. Like people have a lot of theories, and I think that there's like a lot of camps of like not pro Tamlin, but like whether or not like justifying all the stuff that he went through. And I just like don't care. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's
Yeah,
fictional
he's like
characters.
he's the least interesting.
And he's least interesting. So would I be I like when an author can take something in an unexpected direction. So like we talked about how bored we were with Elaine. I know everybody's like, oh, an Elaine book or whatever. If the next book in the series is like Elaine somehow in the spring court and there's an interesting storyline with Tamlin there, I'm here for it because it's not what I would have expected. And if it's literally just like Elaine being like, okay, think that I like Asriel or whatever, I'd be like, I'm so
I could see
bored.
that though. Like maybe Lucian patches things up with Tamlin, and then Lucian and Elaine eventually get together and then move to Springcourt where she can garden all the time.
Justice for Lucian. I need him to like find a different court. Find not the night court, not the spring court, not the autumn court. I don't know. He's like, while we learn about his like new BFFs, Vasa and
Yeah, the
Jurian.
band of
Oh
exiles.
my God, I cannot with the name. I cannot. They're like about to open a rock band. Like,
Get your fiddle out. That's so fucking funny. Reese winnows back to Night Court and he's like, fuck Feyre. Like, I really, like, I was trying to take the higher road. And then he, like, baited me. And then I, like, absolutely just sunk to, like, the lowest levels. And he's really disappointed in himself. And she's like, hey, everyone's allowed a slip up after Winter Solstice. Like, go and patch things up with him.
do you know as much as I like would love to complain about like sometimes how well a lot of times how cringy Feyre is and also Recent is just like oh there's lots of problems with Recent. I'm actually obsessed with their relationship even though it's like boring. There actually are these moments right where she's like yeah everybody just makes mistakes or like they have these
No, they're so good together. I really like them.
yeah they're really good together. No,
Except for when they're like righteous and annoying. It's like I feel like we get that no SF spoilers here, but like I feel like we definitely get that in that second book. Even here, a little bit.
them to other people, them on their own. If it's just them, that I'm like, okay, like
Obsessed.
I'll like read about this and I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, and I feel like we would be remiss to talk about, and maybe you already have this because I think you texted me about it. because very early in like the first chapter, when Rhysand is talking to Cassian in the camp, you know exactly what I'm gonna say, and he's like, "Fuck Cassian, she's 21. She's turning 21." Like he's like having a bro conversation, like a locker room conversation, but he's just like, "I'm a terrible human." And Cassian is so fast in boy nature to be like, "No, bro, it's fine because you love each other so much." And like, how great would it have been if he was just like, "Yeah, you fucking weirdo. She's 21 years old and you're 7,000 years old."
100%. Especially because it doesn't seem like it has the like arrested development thing that Twilight and stuff does. It's truly like you are just fucking an ancient being.
I just don't know why I'm surprised to put that in. Like
Me
it's
too.
kind of funny that I'm just like, I guess she's just absolutely owning it, that it just has this like insane age gap that she's playing with. But I just thought it was really funny. I didn't remember them like actually breaking the fourth wall and talking about it, kind of being like, she's 21, and that he's like kind of broken up about that, which she's like never really been broken up about that ever in.
Before, but maybe faced with her birthday, it's because it's her 21st
Yeah.
birthday, so technically she's 20 at this point, and they met, remember they met, she would have been 19 at the time, but it's like, yeah, I guess it's like he's faced with the fact that she's 21. I just like don't get how you could, I guess she's just not written as a 21-year-old. Like that, let's just put it blankly. She looks like a 21-year-old, but she acts like she's like
They're both,
35 or
yeah,
whatever.
like they're both at like just adult age. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
but I
that's
hate
it.
that about fantasy books, that it's just like, oh, we'll make them fucking 19 because that's when you're like youthful and gorgeous. And anyone else, and like you
Like,
are
sorry,
fertile.
yeah, you still have pimples on your face. Like, fuck
Yeah,
right.
You can't drink legally.
Fairy wine can go to anybody, apparently. Fairy wine doesn't have a legal drinking age. Actually, speaking of wine, they have a lot of, we get some really fun inner circle banter.
Moments.
This is probably my favorite part, and this is what I like really enjoyed reading, being like obsessed with these characters. It did feel like I got this like sitcom episode, or like this little like fan fiction coda where I just like get to explore these moments that of course would never make it into a book that was trying to move the plot forward, because they would those scenes would just be cut because they're not like moving anything forward. But I love when Feyre and Cassian are like getting drunk off of like Rhysand's good wine, and they're trying to decorate, and they like half-heartedly like decorate terribly. Like, isn't she an artist? Shouldn't she like know how to decorate? And then Asriel comes in and like just doesn't even say anything and just starts straightening things. Like, I can see it,
like fixing it. Yeah, it's clearly in my head
with the laugh track going in the audience. Like, it's just really cute. It's really
this
cute.
was my favorite scene, I think, in the entire book, just because it's such a friend moment. Like, it seems so human and so realistic that they would start putting up the decorations and then just like get drunk. And I don't know if it's in this scene particular, but Cassian's like, where does Reese hide the good wine or whatever?
He called him Reese a couple times, and we really get some good Cassian stuff, which again kind of makes sense. They're like, she's planting seeds for what characters we might explore in the next book. And it's just, yeah, it's so funny. He's such a little, it's like there's this scene where they're sitting down for like solstice dinner, and Cassian's got like food like falling out of his mouth, and he's like Joey from Friends, and he's like, why would we wait? And Asriel's like, wait, like just like
wait till everyone sits down at the table, because Elaine goes up to like get a glass of wine or something like that for someone,
which is, they're like really building, exactly, and they're building up. I'm such a simp for Asriel, and it's because we're not getting very much about him, but anytime we do, it's like just hinting at this like traumatic past, and he's just like so tall and brooding, and there's so much depth to him, but we just don't know it, which is why I'm terrified for when we do find out more about him, because I'm going to be like, oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait for that. They have put up the decorations. Elaine is cooking with the girlies and stuff like that. And they're hoping that Nesta joins them for this pre-solstice get together. Elaine's like, oh yeah, by the way, I saw Nesta and she doesn't want to see you or anyone else ever again.
Again, explicitly, she's like, yeah, I just don't. And Feyre's like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, no, she just is like, fuck you, never again. Doesn't want to see us. Doesn't want to be any part of this. And Feyre's like, well, that like won't do. Like, I'll talk to her. And Elaine's like, actually, we get a little bit of like sass from Elaine for the first time because
Yeah.
we're like getting hints that she's kind of been healing a little bit, and she's like gained weight back from being so gaunt, and she hasn't had any like seer visions lately, and she's like doing a little bit better since the war, I guess. And yeah, she's just like, no, like don't bother. Like,
Which is like, what is Nesta's prob at this point? Like, obviously, it's just like the trauma from the war, but what is it about them? Is it just that they are a family and are seemingly on the outside doing well that annoys her? Because that would annoy me, trust me. Like, I'm on Nesta's side here. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, is there anything specifically also?
it's interesting, right? Like it's a good like people deal with things really differently, even with the same upbringing. Like I think you actually like see that in siblings a lot. It's interesting when you're like, why am I so different from my sibling, and we have such different views of the world when we've been brought up this like in the same circumstances by the same parents. Like Nesta though was always, it seemed like a crab apple. It's not like it was just like she was like this prior to when they were in poverty and when they were humans and when they were this. And so I don't know why it's hitting her in this particular way, but she's obviously processing in a and going through something in a very different way than the rest of them, and like doesn't have the same connections
That can pull her out of it. Like Feyre had Rhys and Elaine has Feyre, and Nesta's just never felt this connection to Feyre.
well, and Elaine was like had a partner, had like a betrothed in the human world, and she had somebody that
Yeah.
she like, her makes sense why she is depressed.
And
And I
technically a mate now that, you know, if she was open to it, could
yeah,
tap into.
no, I think it's a good question, and I think we're still just like, oh, why is she so bad? But then we talk about it, but you get like I don't know, 3 pages from her perspective, or like what's going on with her at the end, and she's
Yeah.
obviously like super traumatized. But yeah, favorite had like go like yeah, Elaine's like, I don't want her, or she's not gonna come, and Feyre really wants her there, and
They go track her down.
yeah, they track her down in like this seedy. It's like so funny. It's like this beautiful city that has no issues, but somehow she has found the slummiest place to live and the seediest of all seediest of taverns to go to.
No, I literally can't with this. This is my biggest gripe and grumble. It's like you have just talked about how special Valaris is, which doesn't mean that like
There can't be.
there can't be seedy pubs, because what were they really doing? Gambling, hooking up, and drinking? Like that doesn't sound too bad to me. But like stop describing her fucking neighborhood as a slum if you are the king and queen of this city. It's like, then fix it. If it's like not well, use your fucking millions of dollars or marks or whatever to fix the apartment, the complex that she lives in. Like, case closed.
Case closed. Good thing, just put Torry on the case. No
No,
problem.
literally. I always do this, and it's like, and then I have to remind myself, it's like, well, pray, then you wouldn't have a book if you if all these things were just solved like you think they should be solved. It's like, then there's no intrigue because
So
the book is
funny.
just, yeah. Anyways, they track her down. She's like, can you please come to winter solstice? And she's like, no. And then Feyre pulls the dad card and says, well, our dad would have wanted us together. And she's like, oh, actually, fuck this. Fuck you. She's like, I want you to leave. And then Nesta's like, okay, also, by the way, my rent is due.
This
Will be due January 1st, baby. Like,
no.
gotta
That's
pay the landlord. And she goes, if you come to winter solstice, I will pay your rent.
yeah, I feel like that was like the cringiest moment. I like want to be like sympathetic to what Nesta's going through and like figure it out. And then she's just like, yeah, my rent's due. I'm like, you're not entitled. I don't know. Yeah, are you entitled to their money and want to have nothing to do with them? Is there like any conversation going on about this? I don't know.
That's a good question.
It's just interesting.
Okay, like for example, it's like, what is she supposed to do? Get a job? She has no skills because she was just going to get married off in the mortal lands.
Except that Rhysand is like, it doesn't matter how many jobs I offer her. It's hard because there's nothing, if she wants to live an independent lifestyle, I guess, of them, it doesn't feel like there's like if it's only Rhysand offering her jobs that have to do with dealings with them and she doesn't want anything to do with them. I don't know. Hasn't it also only just been like months? Like her dad just died. Like we're kind of getting into obviously, I think probably if you've been listening this far, you know that the Silver Flames is the next book and it explores more of Nesta's character. So maybe we're like getting, from this book alone, you're just like, what is her problem? So yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because it's like he was like, you can be our human emissary or whatever. And like,
I think he says in this book, he's like, I've offered her so many jobs and it doesn't matter. Like she won't listen. And I think he says that in this book.
But then why doesn't kind of like, I feel like this has happened. I can't think of an example, but it's like, then why not get the fucking baker down the street to offer a job next time she's in the shop or whatever? Or why doesn't she like clear tables at one of the pubs and Rhys just whispers in their ear to offer them a job so it doesn't sound like it came from them? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of about it. But yeah, it's obviously, she's just like does not want to be there. And then Feyre's like, yeah, I'll pay your rent if you come. And then there's also this moment where like Feyre talks to Amren.
Yeah.
Which is actually a moment that I really liked because just exploring nuance of difference of friendships and relationships where she's kind of shocked because Amren's like, yeah, Nesta comes by like once a week at least. And Feyre's like, what? Like she doesn't talk to anybody. We don't know anything about how she's doing. And Amren's like, I'm not gonna gossip about her. Like, I don't care that she's your sister. I don't care that you're like freaking out about it. Like, give her time. She's like, months are inconsequential to like people who are going to live thousands of years.
Yes, that's another thing that like hinges on this plot because they're so upset that Nesta's not doing well. And it's like, babes, it's been mere months and you will live forever. And they talk about this all the time about how like it took Feyre months to get well after the under the mountain stuff. She still gets nervous in tight underground spaces. We saw that in Akawar. So it's like, I think it goes two ways. Like, yeah, Nesta can't really be asking for money if she wants nothing to do with these people. But then it's also like, they can't ask her to all of a sudden just like slap on a happy face. If this was like years down the road, like sure. But it's like, it's been months.
Cassian even references being like, it took me months. He goes, hell, years after the first war that I've been through to like figure out my shit. And so I'm just like, why is everyone freaking out about this? Like, let her. Okay, she doesn't want to come to Christmas. Haven't we all had family problems where someone's estranged for a year? Like, let her go.
100%. And like, two things. Yes, Christmas, it would be so annoying to see people that are generally well. Like, obviously, they're still dealing with some of the consequences from the war. Feyre and Elaine don't even seem shook by their dying because, again, they have hundreds of years on these girlies. They have better coping strategies, or they can just see more they see the big picture. They see more long term, and they're like, we'll get over this. We'll get over the highborn stuff. And then the second thing is that how many times did Feyre refuse Rhys's help? That was like the first third of Akamath. So it's just so frustrating that Nesta refuses their help like over 2 months. And they're like, she's hopeless and should just die in the Sidra.
I know. We're getting into it, but like justice for Nesta. Sorry. I'm like, okay.
Anyways.
I want to talk about the gift.
Yes. There's one moment, and then we'll get to Winter Solstice, just that Feyre sees a tapestry in one of the shops when she's out shopping for the 6th time. And she's like talking to the creator of the tapestry, and she's like, oh my God, you used art to heal, because it was like black and then there was like silver in it or whatever. And then she's like, know what? I can do the same. I can use art to heal myself and other people. So I'm going to open that gallery into a studio.
It's so cheesy, that entire conversation. It's like, I've made thread because my husband didn't come back, so I learned, and I called it the void. What about this thread? Well, after I was finished doing the void,
I actually want to jump off a bridge.
I learned how to. I learned for hope, and it's like capitalized hope. I call this thread hope. I was puking it off the side of my bed while I was reading this. I cannot. That part was like all that healing stuff was super cheesy, super
cheesy. It also was so unnecessary, because I was like, we've seen Feyre use painting multiple times to heal herself in the cabin, post-mate situation, in Spring Court, at home, on the fucking dresser. Like, why did she have to hear it for the 6th time from this random chick? It pisses me off so much. She knows this. She's been using art to cope for years, but she had to hear from this weaver about it. It's so frustrating.
That's really funny. Yeah. Maybe it's just frustrating because it's like the same storyline over and over and over again. And I'm like, okay.
Anyways, it's Winter Solstice.
Yeah.
And that means it's her birthday. So happy birthday, Feyre, darling. Rhys wakes her up in the AM and he gives her 3 gifts. One is a sketchbook with charcoal. It has her initials on it. One is a scarf because she's been stealing, I think, Moore's. And then a satchel to carry her art supplies with her initials and the Night Court insignia on it. Which I was like LOLing because it was like, remember when Tamlin got you basically the satchel with paints? And that led to bad times. But
yikes, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex got me something like this before.
But they had been joking about how he would be a good nude model for her painting. And so she's finally like, know what? It's time. I'm going to draw you nude.
No, it's really cute scene. Like it's really cute scene in her birthday and stuff. She's like, I don't want it to be my birthday. I don't want anybody to like worry about it. And then he gets her all these thoughtful presents because he's like, yeah, it's like, I just like don't want jewels and gems and stuff. And like, we already have 10 million of those. So like, whenever you want them, I'll get you these. And I can also just see the sitcom scene in my head where she's like, oh, and didn't I say naked? You'd be a good naked model, and like close the door, like laugh track.
It's so funny.
Cut to the notebook is sitting somewhere. Cassian's like 4 bottles of wine deep, and he's like, what's this? He's looking at it. Reese, didn't know you're so well over there. Like, I love it. I love it
so much. So she like shuts the blinds at one point and she's like, you'll forgive me if I don't feel like sharing the glory that is you with anyone else. And then Rhys says, it's been a while since we had paints involved.
I love couples having their own inside throwbacks to their own inside jokes.
It was so funny. But after some sexy times and some drawing, Rhys is whisked away to the cabin for an unknown solstice tradition between Azriel, Cassian, and him that we don't know what was it about. Do you remember reading this for the first time? Did you have any idea of what it was going to be?
No. And they're like, don't worry, we'll take care of him. Ha ha ha, if he can keep up. And it's just all the things where I probably read it and was like, are they going to have sex finally?
No, literally.
Funny it sounds like it, but of course no, I just probably was just like, okay. And there's this really weird like boys will be boys kind of thing between her more. It's really weirdly gendered of like the boys have this bachelor party kind of tradition. I don't know, it was funny.
Yeah, I kind of pictured in my head before this like a hunt and then like a getting drunk or something like that. So like I guess that's kind of the same, but this is obviously way cuter. Would you be annoyed if every single of every single time it's your birthday, your partner gets whisked away for half the day or like the full day to hang out with his buddies?
I'm going to reference such a specific moment, and anybody who loves pop culture and keeps up with reality TV, because I'm going through, sorry for this sidebar, my first watch of Vanderpump Rules.
Oh my God.
Tom telling Ariana that he wants to go play with like
Dump trucks.
Dump trucks while she's crying on her birthday. And she's like, it would just be really important for me for you to be with me on my birthday. And he's like, but babe, my guy friends have invited me to Vegas to like drive around in construction trucks. That is just what made me think of every time I would be it's giving Tom and Ariana season 4.
And we know how that turned out. That is so fucking funny, but it's true. Like I guess again, it's like if you're immortal, like what is an afternoon or whatever, but like
she doesn't care. It's her birthday. She's just like, I'm not like other girls. I don't want attention on my birthday. That's fine. You go do your thing. And then it's really funny because, yeah, it's this mystery. What are they doing? Don't worry. We'll have him back. And she's like, what are you doing down the bond? And he's like, don't worry about it. Again, giving every fan fiction writer fodder for the years to come of Cassie and Azriel and Kat and Recent. And then more comes, and she's just like, oh, those idiots didn't tell you what they were doing. And she winnows them to the cabin. And what does she find?
A snowball fight. It's so funny. It's so fun. I feel like kicking my feet, smiling ear to ear. Just because, again, like, cheesy 100. But really fucking cute. And, like, just, again, I could see the TV, like you're saying, like, the TV scene already playing out in my head.
Yeah, and yeah, they've got like forts built up, and they're like not allowed to use magic, and they're not allowed to use their wings, and it's just like you're just like as Azriel pops up and throws, and then you hear Rhys be like, God damn it! And it's like they like hit each other, and like it still doesn't explain how you're supposed to win, because I think they jokingly are like, yeah, how are you win? And Moore's like, I don't know, the first one who doesn't get frostbite, or like who can last the longest. And then they're in the cabin, so they encroach. It's obviously not a boys only time, because the girls are just like, yeah, we'll just hang out at the cabin until they're done. And like they don't have a reaction or anything. But let us talk about the Virgin.
Oh my God. So after, the tradition is that they go take a nude steam in the Birchin, which is a sauna? Like a wood sauna that's attached to the house, which we have never heard of, even though we've been in this fucking cabin for 4 books.
Yeah, why wouldn't there be sauna sex between Feyre and Recent up until that point? Plot hole.
Or just like not even sex, but just like after the war, or like after a training day at the camp, like them just relaxing in the sauna.
The only reason that we are so offended by this is because you and I are spa girlies, and so it's so important to us. If they're like, you have a sauna, we would have been there every day. It's like nobody else cares about this, but we're like, how dare they have never mentioned the sauna before?
No, literally no one else cares. But how have they not mentioned it? And then this is like so funny, but also just like I would be annoyed, because I think Feyre down her bond starts sending pictures, because they're in the cabin, starts sending pictures to Rhys about them hooking up in the cabin, and then he like gets a boner and gets kicked out of the Birchin.
But first, I know it's literally so unhinged and so funny, but first he hints at being like, there's room for one more. We're all naked in here. There's room for one more, which is like not the first time that he's hinted at like them having like throuple sex, or like more than one person, like another person involved in their sex life. And she's just like, what are you talking about? Like, get over yourself. And he's like, I don't know. I just always want to see what makes you interested, Feyre darling. And then she starts sending him like pictures of being like, I recall that you said that you would take me up against the wall. And he's like, maybe you shouldn't send these to me because like it's really not good form for me to get a boner while I'm in here. And she just like keeps doing it until he like I heard sounds of somebody getting kicked out, and Moore's like, did you kick him out? She's like, yeah. And they're like, boys are so stupid.
Which like is funny, but I'm like, if you're hanging out with your guy friends, like I don't know. I'm just like, girl, fucking lock it up. Also, it's like she's so basic. Like, she's so basic.
All they have to do is send pictures of each other's tongues to each other, and they're just like so hot and heavy for it.
No, there's another point in this book where I think it's when Reese sees Feyre in a dress on winter solstice, and she's wearing a dress and then she's wearing these diamond cuffs, and at another point they had sex and she was just wearing the diamond cuffs, and so Reese sees Feyre in this dress, and Amren goes, "Rain in that scent of yours, boy."
Like he like, because of course everybody can smell horniness, and yeah, he is literally like having a full ass fantasy in his mind. Do you know how annoying that would be? Thank God we can't smell pheromones on each other in real human life.
Seriously, but I feel like they use it so wishy-washy because there's so many times where they could have said that and then they didn't note the scent, but then there's so many times where they use it as like a plot point. I don't know. It kind of annoys me, but it is, I think, like a fae trope or whatever, like scenting. So, or like a fae characteristic.
Yeah, he's like, oops, sorry. Like when he and
like, what?
And we've got a little bit like nobody like, does anybody even remember who Varian is? But if you're paying attention and you're following along, Amren is like bringing home a boyfriend for the first time, and so Varian, her summer court boyfriend, prince boyfriend, is like over visiting the family for the winter solstice the first year. It's really funny.
This is what I don't get also. It's like he's a prince in summer court, so what is the like structure? What's the hierarchy? Because he's not High Lord. So is he Tarquin's like, because remember the King of Highburn had the prince and princess.
I think it's just different systems. Like it's hard because the Night Court doesn't have what you would call prince and princess, king or queen. Yeah. But I think that maybe there's other like systems in different courts where they're like, you know, politically there's like the High Lord, although I guess no one ever talks about being voted in. And then there's also, you know what, fucking beats me. But there are princes and princesses and extra
in the
shit.
Summer Court.
Except no king, except no High King.
That's
nobody.
What I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Here for the vibes, not for the plot.
Here for the vibes. While all of this is happening, Lucien does visit Feyre, and this is when he mentions that he's living with Jurian and Vassa as the Band of Exiles. And Feyre is, like, mad about this, and I was like, give this boy a break, because he explains, he's like, I was exiled out of Spring Court. I was disowned by my family in Autumn Court and like kind of fucking exiled from and like rejected from my mate. So just kind of let me have this one. But he brings gifts to Elaine and Feyre and then leaves. But later that night, Reese surprises Feyre with a birthday cake for her 21st birthday. And it's before dinner. They can eat cake before dinner because they make the rules. They eat dinner. We get that moment from Azriel being like, wait until everyone's seated before eating. Feyre just keeps looking at the clock because she is waiting for Nesta to arrive, but Nesta is nowhere to be found. So after dinner, they start opening their gifts, and she arrives, and she is like fucking silent the whole night. She walks in, she like gets a drink, is offered a seat by the fire, totally like clams up and doesn't say anything, and literally sits like a statue the entire night.
We all know this person at the family dinner. Like
why is it me though? I don't even know what to say, but like when I'm mad, this is me. I felt so bad for her because I've just been in this position where she like literally cannot verbalize anything that's going on with her, and she's taking a personal offense that everyone is having a good time and she's not, and that no one seems to care that she's not having a good time. But I'm like, also guys, what do you fucking expect from her? No one even gave her gifts except for Elaine.
I know. It's sad.
Everyone's giving each other gifts. Feyre gets like fucking 30 gifts from everybody. And no one got her. Like, Elaine gets Nesta some romance novels. That's it. And it's like so awkward. But then also, Nesta doesn't even say happy birthday. Like, goes, oh, yeah, I forgot. I guess it's your birthday. So it's like, it's all bad. It's all bad. It's just a sticky situation. Bad vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes. That's funny. I was thinking about, you were talking about like that. Why is it me in the corner when I'm like, everybody else is having a good time and like nobody knows that I'm having a bad time. And I'm also just like, why at every like large family function do I regress to my sullen teenager ways where I just want to be on my phone in the corner, basically being Nesta. Yeah, she shows up and then it's like sad. And then there's like this pointed tension where like Cassian looks at her, but they don't say anything. And there's a lot of mentions of the fact that they haven't talked or said anything since the war, since they had some like more intense moments together. So that's kind of going on, because we also get Rhys's like first person perspective point of view in chapters of this book, and he seems to have some thoughts every once in a while about Cassian and maybe Nesta, but then being like, I don't know if that's going to work out or if anything's going to happen. And then she leaves and Feyre gives her like a check for 3 like months worth of rent, and Feyre's like praying she doesn't take it, and Nesta's bye.
And she thinks she's going to, like, rip it up and be like, sorry, I'll be your human emissary and, like, we'll get through this. But I'm like, okay, like, that was false hope. It's like that, Nesta's that meme where it's like, I forget what the setup is, but it's like, something happened to me. I guess I'm gonna like ruin the family dinner or whatever. Like, I'm about to make like this
the drama.
Like, the vibes.
I will be the rancid drama.
Yeah,
cause some family drama. That's really funny.
Yeah, let's talk about the gifts. Feyre gets an illuminated manuscript from Amren, rare paint from Azriel, a blade sheath from Cassian,
classic,
slippers from Moore, monogrammed paintbrushes from Elaine, and liquor from Lucian.
It's funny, Moore being a terrible gift giver, and everybody, like, there's at one point they're like, yeah, you got to be careful, look out for Moore's gifts, and then it's like, yeah, Cassian's got like a drawer full of ruffled silk shirts from her, and I think it's really funny to not think that she's a bad gift giver, because she always like looks really good and she's always fashionable and stuff, but actually she's just like, I'm just gonna fuck with these fools and get them a stupid gift every
so much
year.
Better.
Yeah, that's like, I like feel that. I think that more would be more like that.
I love that. Rhys gets a painting from Feyre. It's her true self in the Ouroboros. So that one that she painted in the abandoned gallery, she gives it to Rhys.
But she also, without, like, they're like, so it's really funny because when Feyre gives her gifts, they're like, she got this thing for Elaine and she got this thing for Amren. And then she painted paintings for the people she really cares about. Like, it was
literally, that's so fucking true. She purchases things for everyone, and then it's like, but my real friends, I'll paint something for. That's so fucking funny.
And they're all talking after being like, so how do we get lower on the friend tier list so that we don't receive a bad painting from Feyre? Would rather just take the necklace that I can return if I need to. Like, that's just also a funny sitcom thing. But yeah, they don't say what her gifts are to like Cassian, Azriel, and more, but that they just like look at them. And then Cassian like peeks at the one that she gives Rhys, and he's like, "Is that your guys' new pet?" Or he like makes some funny, weird comment that I'm just like, does it not lend itself to thinking that Feyre's a good painter?
I know, 100%, because he's like, what is this? It's like, you would know it's the Ouroboros or whatever. If I have to say that word one more time, I will end this podcast. Like, it's so brutal. Moore receives a red negligee from Cassian, and then, yeah, the painting from Feyre. Azriel receives monogrammed towels from Moore, the painting from Feyre, and medication for headaches from Elaine.
I know, and Elaine didn't get anybody anything. She's like, oh, that's from me. And like, I like, because you are always rubbing your temples at all the idiots here. And so I got it.
Oh my God, that's a really good point, because Elaine only gets something for Nesta and Feyre. And
Yeah.
Asriel.
Yeah.
Interessante.
And then Asriel like throws his head back laughing, which you like never get. And he's like he's chuffed. And everyone's like giving side eye or whatever. And I thought that the negligee lingerie for Moore was so funny because she opens it up and Asriel's like does a double take and he's like, wait, what the hell, Cassian? And Moore's like, no, don't worry. I just knew he's a bad gift giver, which is funny because everyone thinks she's a bad gift giver. And he's like, I just told him exactly what to get me, and he did it like a good boy. And it was just like, that's really funny. And then she gets him a matching set of boxers. The matching,
yeah, which is so funny. Like, I love that she told him that, and then she got him the matching silk underwear. Like, that's fucking funny. I love this.
Cassian's, there's something so fun about his friendships with the girls in the group that I think is like yeah, it's like that golden retriever energy. I've seen a lot of him compared to that, but it's really funny, like him drinking wine with Feyre and joking around, and then him obviously having this camaraderie with Moore, even though things have been complicated. And then he like teases and he calls Rhys Reese. Like he's obviously just like the big, lovable, huggable bear of the group.
So Amryn gets a coat and some other things from Varian before solstice happens. She gets pearl and diamond earrings from Asriel, a puzzle carrier and brooch from Feyre, and jewelry from Rhys. Her puzzle thing is funny.
Oh yeah, that's also another like funny little scene where you walk in and you're like, what are you doing? And Amryn's just got puzzles across the floor of her apartment,
and which Feyre's is like, how many pieces? And she's like, 5,000.
They're not hard enough for me. Yeah, so yeah, there's like, that's cute.
Elaine gets a cloak from Feyre and gardening gloves from Lucien. And then Nuala and Caradwyn get blankets from Elaine and a big fat bonus check from Rhys.
What gift do you want the most of all of these? If only you can see Torry's face.
None of the gifts were like that good, to be honest. Like, honestly, the monogram towels, I know that was supposed to be a joke to Asriel, but like, I love me some like good plush towels.
You would love that. I want the
puzzle carrier.
I do not want the puzzle carrier. No, I want the really expensive liquor bottles that Lucien leaves with a note that just says, you're going to need this.
Yes, or the pearl and diamond earrings sound good too.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no to the pearl and diamonds, actually, or the bonus check. Or the bonus check from Rhys. I wouldn't mind some like cute, like Nesta got a good deal with like her like lovely set of romance novels.
That's also a good gift. Yeah, absolutely. But like, don't want the painting, don't want the gardening gloves. Like, it's so funny. But this is like where it gets fucking spicy. This is the only good part of this book, like, truly. Nesta goes to leave. Feyre says, you know, you came, here's your rent check. And again, she's hoping she rips it up, but she doesn't. And Cassian's like, just wait, I'm going to walk you home. And she's like, you really don't need to. And he's like, no, like, I insist. Like, I'll walk you home. And they just basically get into, like, a blowout of an argument because all of the stuff has been just bottled up. And it's finally coming out on Christmas. Classic.
I know we keep calling it Christmas, but it's solstice. But it's basically, that's what it's standing for. Yeah, big enemies, very reminiscent of like, well, it is a different flavor than Rhys and Feyre, but we talked about this in the Aquara episode of just like, I'm over, like everything's resolved with Feyre and Rhys, and so there's not the same tension. And so all my interest is like on what's going on with Cassian and Nesta. And yeah, she is like, leave me alone. And he is like, no, I'm gonna come. And then big blowout, big summer blowout. And he tries to give her a gift that he had because he's like, I had this gift that I wanted to give Nesta, and it took me so long to find it, and I didn't want to give it in front of the others because we hadn't really talked. And he tries to give it to her, right? Does he try to give it to her? She don't know?
Yeah, he pulls it out of his like pocket or coat or whatever, and it's in his hand. And she goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well, it's, you know, my gift for you." And she's like, No. Like, absolutely not. Because he says, like, basically, like, my Christmas wish, which my fucking grandma does this every year. He goes, my Christmas wish is that you'll be closer with your sisters next year because I can see how much it hurts Feyre and Elaine. And she's like, no, I don't want your fucking gift. I don't want your advice. I don't want your friendship. I don't want to hear this. So she leaves. He throws the gift in the sidra. We have no idea to this day what it is. She's like marching up to her house and she's like, I know that he is flying over me, watching that I get home safe, and that he like lands on a rooftop across from her apartment and like waits till she gets into her apartment. And she's just like disassociating. We also learn that her apartment's like freezing cold because she can't have the fire on because it reminds her of her dad's neck snapping. Like the fire crackles are triggering her. And so she is just like fucking unwell.
Yeah, she's severely unwell. And I'm like living, and I hate it, and I'm living for every moment of this like tension between them and like what's
Me too. It's so good. The buildup is so good. It's funny. I was like kind of like meh on this series, and then I'm like hook, line, and sinker back in for Nessian.
Yep. Which I think happens to everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like that online, but I'd be curious to hear if that isn't the case for some people. So to wrap us up, Rhys whisks Feyre away to the cabin for some alone time. And Feyre asks Rhys if he would change her tattoo, her eye tattoo on her hand, to the Night Court logo to match the ones on his knee. She's like, by the way, I have another gift for you. I literally can't do this.
No. And I was like, what is going on? They are like having mind altering universe jumping sex. Like, what?
Yeah.
What was happening?
Yeah, like they talk about like having sex while flying at one point.
That's
like,
part of my gripes and grumbles, excuse me, but keep going.
Yeah. And then yeah, I guess just because they can use the bond to show each other things, different like POVs or whatever. So that's happening. And she's like, I have one more gift for you, which she like didn't even really give him a gift because she gave a homemade painting. And I say this all the time. I would rather get a gift from the mall than a gift from the heart. And through the bond, she shares the image of her son that the bone carver showed Cassian and her. And she's like, I'm ready to conceive a child with you. Baby, that's not a gift. It literally kills me. Again, that's not a gift. Like, Kay, I don't know. I was so annoyed at this.
I just can't do the pregnancy like trope, like whole thing. And for me, like if people want that happily ever after in that way, that's great. But like,
why is it always immediatamente after they get together? Like they haven't even. So what does this mark like about a year that they've been together? Like, I'm just like, and they do. I think at one point she says like, yeah, I want kids, but like down the line because I want us just to be together. And then all of a sudden she's like, nope, like I'm good to get pregnant now. You just had your 21st birthday. Like you have your whole life to get pregnant. Your whole immortal life. Like it's just so annoying to me.
Yeah, the timeline that like does it only makes sense for.
I wish we did like a 10-year jump or something like that because like. Obviously, I want them to have a kid and stuff like that because that's what they want and they need an heir to the Night Court and like all of that stuff. But like, it seems so soon.
Yeah, that's a great Grumble for sure.
And Rhys one-ups her one more time because he takes her the next day and gives her a lot of land and is like, we're going to build our dream estate here because the townhouse is just too tight. There's like a few minor deets at the end where Rhys goes to Tamlin and like offers kind of an apology, and then Moore goes to this private estate that she owns and she like senses something in the forest that is unknown to us. And then Rhys sees the female Illyrians training, so that issue was resolved. And Racina and Feyre open the studio and host children's art classes.
So I had no memory of the Moore chapter, like whatsoever in all of my rereads and stuff. I had no memory of the Moore chapter, and then we don't really have a lot more about Moore in the future, and so I am just like, oh, what is going on with this? And also, why she has a private estate that she's like never
She's
told.
had for 300 years and never told her BFFs.
And it's just like I don't understand. Yeah, a lot of them have like a lot of secrets from one another. There's a lot of like, and we could never talk about that, or we've never told that, or Azriel's never told us that, or something. And I am just like, are you guys doing friendship wrong?
Yeah, how good of friends are you? You're not even out to your friends. And I know that there's a million reasons why people choose to not come out, but it's like, yeah, you're totally right. You have like all of these secrets.
Not just her, like all of them from each other. And I'm just like, I don't know, do better. I don't know, get with the 21st century. You guys are supposed to be like the court that does things differently, and you're casual and you care about each other and you don't know shit about each other. Okay.
That's such a good point. Okay, let's get into our roundtable discussion. Our internet investigation. This is our cursory peruse of the internet of things you need to know. I saw this and I repeated this to you, and then I can't find any other information about it on the internet. Allegedly, this was supposed to be a full-fledged book, but Sarah J. Maas's dad became ill, and she probably had, a deal with her publishing house or whatever, and had to publish something shorter. But then I also have read that, like, it's like the first 3 ACOTAR books are a trilogy, and this is a bridge book because we're changing POVs in Silver Flames. And so much is set up in Silver Flames that we won't spoil in this book. So kind of conflicting information there.
No, I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm just like, yeah, those things check out.
As much as I am annoyed by this book, just at the repetition, which again, we've said this in other ACOTAR books, like I just think she needs a more stringent editor. Because again, I had a good time reading it, and I think it's so smart. Instead of just like it makes it so much easier having this novella and then changing POVs than trying to do it well just in a full novel for Silver Flame. So like I think this is actually really, really smart, but she just needs a better editor. They need to cut, and people probably say that about this podcast.
That's so funny.
That we circle the drain and could use a stringent editor, and to that I say touche. Like that is so fair.
Pay us the money that she's getting, and then you can get an editor.
Absolutely. So our Wonder Whys, these are our unanswered questions for the listeners. We've talked about this a little bit, but like, why does Rhys act so high and mighty, and that Velaris is perfect? Which again, like, I want to live there. I do think it's perfect, but then they're talking so much shit about these seedy pubs and these slums and stuff like that. It's just like fucking weird.
My Wonder Why is like, my only like big that I got excited about reading, because I felt like it was a new plot point that I hadn't read yet in the entire series because I forgot about this book, is like, what is the darkness in the forest that Moore sees? And it's just like, I'm just gonna leave that alone. And what's that? That's my Wonder Why.
Actually, we got a listener question about that, so let's just add that in now. At Piper's Mom 25 says, was that Bryaxis at Moore's estate love his horse girl transformation? Which, like, I was LOLing. Do we think it's Bryaxis? I did a little more half-assed internet research, and like, people are saying it could be Bryaxis. People said maybe, and again, correct me on my pronunciation, but Koschei.
Oh.
Who is like an immortal god that crops up in the later books. But she didn't seem, again, correct me if I'm wrong because I read this last week, she didn't seem like disturbed.
No, she was like, I'm just going to leave it. There's lots of bad things in the forest. Like, I'm just not going to worry about it. No, I think it's something else that SJM is good at like leaving little plot points that you don't think will come together, especially around like different creatures or darkness. So There could be anything, but I feel like we're waiting for a big wow moment about Moore and her story, and like things will
Yeah.
come together because she is one of the like of the inner circle. We know, I would actually arguably say like the least about her. And like what her power is, this like power of truth, all of this hinting that Eris did at like there's something more about what happened in the forest that day.
Yeah.
And we kind of know the surface level stuff, and then she just like kind of had that bit of a lore dump about her being gay, lol. And then yeah, obviously we don't know a lot about Azrael, but I feel like there's just like a lot of characters because we've gotten such a deep dive on some of them, like we get on Nesta and Cassian in the next book, that I'm like, are there going to be like 10 books? Because I want my deep dive on each character. I'll take one for Elaine, even I'll take one for Tamlin, but first I need Azrael.
If you, of course, if you had to choose who the next book is about, who's the main POV, who would you want it to be?
Good question. I want to say Azrael because I want to know more about him, but only if it made sense. But I saw this like one fan theory that like it's going to follow Elaine in the spring court, which is arguably like the least thing that I care about. But now I want that. Now I like want to know something that I wasn't expecting to know. But actually, sorry, it took me 2 seconds to answer. You know this. I am a Lucian girly through and through.
I
I
know
would
you are.
I would literally thrive. I love him. I would thrive. I don't think we're gonna get it, but I would thrive for like more evolution point of view or like deep dive into what's going on with him or Eris. Like I'm like intrigued and interested of
I'm
what's going on at
really
the Autumn Court.
interested. Yeah. For some reason, Eris is like really doing it for me in terms of intrigue because we even got a little bit in this book where when they went to Hewn City and Moore was like thinking about being left in the forest and like we just got a little bit more information about that. So like I'm most interested or like curious about his story, but if I had to put money on it, I would say it's gonna be Elaine because
The sisters, yeah.
the Archeron sisters, I think that makes a lot of sense. But we don't know who Elaine is gonna be with. Like, is it gonna be Azrael? Is it gonna be Lucian? Could it be this curveball with maybe a Tamlin Springcourt situ? I think like the most realistic is that it's Lucian, but she ends up living in Springcourt with him. But or maybe the most obvious is Azrael, but it's like I again, like I've said this before a million times, I'd be fucking so annoyed if the Archeron sisters just ended up with the Bat Boys. Like that's just
Knowing that she's gonna wind up with Azrael and they're gonna have babies and it's gonna be like that's it if we're just going by what friggin' everything else is. So
my last wonder why is that what gift did Cassian get for Nesta?
oh yeah.
Okay, our gripes and grumbles, these are nitpicky problems we have with the book. I just said it's nearly 300 pages, and for what? I think it could have been condensed down to a nice 150. We get it, Feyre. You don't want to spend money. We get it. Nesta's drinking herself away, and like we get it. Rhys and Feyre love each other. Like,
Where are you? Tell me where the lie is.
also, it's her 21st birthday, and that annoys me like
Yeah.
to no end.
Yeah, that's annoying. My gripes and grumble is like they're having sex in the sky.
Yeah.
How?
Sound shield, baby. That just
Sound
changes
shield?
everything. Yeah.
Sound shield? No, what about like your muscles and your body and how you're keeping up? And I mean, she talked about them almost crashing into like rooftops and stuff, and I'm just like, you're flying.
A sound shield, but and it must be also like a vision shield because
Anyways, you're like zipping yourself out while you're flying as you're like trying to keep your balance. I just make it make sense. It's my gripe. It's my grumble. It's stupid ass. Like, get a bed in one of your 10 houses.
they're clearly like exhibitionists.
Yeah, yeah, because they're having sex during the war on everybody, and they're having sex here, and yeah,
And there's even a scene where they start having sex before Hewn City, and Moore's outside the door, and she's like, "Remember, we have to leave in 30 minutes," and they're like. It's so funny. I already told this to you on our emergency FaceTime last week, but it's annoying to me that the Bat Boys don't mention that they haven't been able to do the snowball winter solstice tradition for the last 50 years. Or would they have done it last year?
No, no, I think they don't talk about winter, or I can't remember. If there is a mention of winter solstice, it's like they don't get to do a bunch of like celebrations because there's like war going on.
But just wait, okay, so I guess she's back at Spring Court after UTM when winter solstice happens.
Yeah, so it's possible that they've had
So maybe
one.
they've done it once since UTM happened, but like, so I guess maybe it doesn't have to be mentioned, but like it just, I think if there was just one sentence that was just like, it's also so special that we get to redo this because we haven't been able to do it for 50 years, it would just make so much more sense. It would put something
I know you hate
back
that.
into context.
I know you hate it. It's so funny.
That's all my gripes and grumbles. Do you have any?
No, I thoroughly appreciated again, we've talked about this because depending on if you've reread the books or only read them once for some of our episodes, you've had different thoughts on the reread. And so like having reread this, it's just a lot of my like initial gripes and grumbles about it turned into like fun sitcom moments I just like
I know
get to enjoy it because I was soaking up moments after I've like settled with so much time with these characters and then I'm like desperate like for other stuff.
Jarring?
Yeah, I guess it's so like random.
I know, but I guess when you get books, because like this was published in 2018 and then they didn't get Silver Flames till 2021, so I guess it's like it's not that jarring. But like I finished Akawar and then 5 days later started Frost and Starlight, and then the next day started Silver Flames, and it was just so jarring. But I guess like when you have 3-ish years in between, it's less.
No, it like it doesn't make sense whatsoever. This entire novel doesn't make sense for this series, for a fantasy series. It is the most random 200 and something pages of like published. I like why it wasn't a bonus thing like available on her website. Like bizarre.
Wild times. Wild. It kind of reminds me, just to bring it back to Twilight, because we always have to do that, of the second short life of Bree Tanner. Like, why the fuck did she publish that novella? Like, so randy.
Yeah. Why the fuck did Stephanie Meyer publish a lot of books? But I know. And codas and extra things. But yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, it's weird. I've read that people think that the next thing that's going to come out is actually like a more novella. Like people are thinking that before a big book comes out that there actually might be another novella while she like takes time to write more in the actual series. Because so it'll be interesting.
I'd be happy with that, a little tidbit to keep us on our toes. I'm sure because it's blown up on TikTok, her publishing house is like, we got to get something out, whether that's like another coloring book or a novella or something. I'm sure they're just like, we got to feed this.
Well, and we got to feed that, but she's also like riding all of the success of like the Crescent City series. And she just came out with like a book that's like the third book in that series, which is like as big as my
February
head.
Or March, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about our sequel scoop. This is the tea on any upcoming sequel seasons and the general reception. We just kind of gave some of the takes. I want to point out, though, when I was doing some research, the reception for this was lukewarm. People were just like, it's so different from your previous books. It's not what we kind of signed up for, which I think is fair. And the next book is A Court of Silver Flames.
That makes me so mad. Acosta. All the other ones have a vowel for me to work with.
It's so bad.
There's my grips and grumbles. But yeah, let us know what your favorite gift was.
Yes. Tell us your favorite gift. Tell us if you liked the book. I'm so curious to see what people's perspective is on this. And again, I feel like if I read it when they were coming out at the time, I would have been like, oh, I'm obsessed just to get a little crumb from this series. But yeah, reading them back to back is a hard sell, let me tell you.
Still better than Akawar. I'll take all of it.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
Okay, Megan, thanks so much for going on. And that's the story of A Court of Frost and Starlight. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Megan for joining me on today's episode. I feel like I say this every week, but especially for a new podcast like Ready to Be Romance, it is so vital for listeners to subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So if you haven't already, please take a few minutes and write a review. If you don't know what to say, you can comment on maybe the book choice or the hosts or the discussion or why you think someone should tune in. I appreciate it so much. If you want to suggest a book for me to cover or leave a voicemail, question, or comment, you can do so via the links in the episode show notes. I feel like I say this to my friends all the time that they're so sick of me, but I don't think I've said it really on the podcast. So I just want to say this podcast is really filling my creative bucket. It has been, kind of a dream of mine to start this podcast, the second podcast of mine, over the last year or two, and to see it come to fruition has just been so thrilling for me. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Our next episode is the fine print. Until then, happy reading. For Ready to Be Romanced, I'm Torry. Goodbye.